Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Crypto Chart Update for December 31st, 2017. My name is Tim, I'm a retail investor and journalist. This episode is special because it's the second part of my series where I take a deep dive into one specific cryptocurrency. Last time we talked about Ripple, and today we're talking about Ethereum. That means we're going to look at Ethereum on a big picture time frame as well as a smaller time frame, and we're going to compare it to itself but also to other cryptocurrencies and maybe even some other stocks and other assets to get a better idea of the actual trend and mechanics of Ethereum. But before we do that, guys, I just want to introduce you to my blog on tradingview.com. If you go to tradingview.com under Berlin Trader 591, you can see all my trade ideas, and that's where I really lay out more in-depth analysis on all the trading ideas that I have on a daily basis. You can see my stops, my targets, and why I'm making my predictions the way I am. So check it out, Berlin Trader 591. You can also find my blog on Steemit. I really appreciate you guys if you would follow me and support me there, because I just joined and it's just another way to show your support. So sign up to Steemit, which is a social media site based on blockchain. Maybe that's the future of social media, but I really appreciate if you go to Steemit and follow me under Berlin Trader. And of course, guys, if you like these videos, under the video you will find a lot of different affiliate links of products and exchanges and hardware wallets that I can recommend. And I've used all of these services, and I wouldn't recommend them if I didn't use them. But if you want to sign up to an exchange or make a donation or buy a hardware wallet like a Trezor or a Nano, then please click through those links and I get a little piece come my way. That would be really nice. And finally, I always want to give a shout out to my friends at CryptoKing.org, because they have a really cool news site that's really simple. They just have the news and categorized by coin, and I really love it. And of course, the best thing is they have my videos on the right side of the page. How cool is that? Before we begin, guys, a warning that this is only an educational video, and for entertainment purposes, this is not actual financial advice. Please contact your financial advisor before you make any decisions, because these markets are volatile and risky. Alright, so let's take a deep dive into Ethereum. First, I want to start with coinmarketcap.com, where we can see that Ethereum is the number 3 coin in terms of market cap, with a $70 billion market cap. And that's pretty crazy because Ripple surpassed it only in the last few days, and Ethereum has become number 3 while Ripple has become number 2. Now, it doesn't really matter which market cap is the biggest. It just means that Ethereum is in the top group of coins, right? Ethereum's right up there in the top 3, in the top 5, and that means there's a lot of volume. It's very tradable, it's on all the exchanges, and it's a really important coin for market liquidity and to know what the general trend is for cryptocurrencies. So even if you're trading crazy altcoins, it's still good to know what is happening with Ethereum or Bitcoin for that matter, because you get an overall kind of feel and sentiment of the crypto market. Is it going up or is it going down in general? And so that's why it's important to know that Ethereum is one of the top coins. But that also means that it usually doesn't move as much as the altcoins, of course, right? You're not going to get the 50% moves in one day, but it does move, and that's what we're going to see as we look at the charts. What we see on every exchange is basically that Ethereum started to break out of its base in 2017, and a base formed before 2017. We had a nice rounded base here, and rounded bases are, you could say, cups or rounded base, whatever you want to call it, but basically that means that momentum came in and turned price upward. And when we break out of those bases, things usually happen in a big way, and that's exactly what happened in 2017 for Ethereum. We popped up from $13 all the way to about 400, so a 400% or 4,000% increase. Pretty insane. And then we consolidated sideways. You know, after such a big run, that's just healthy behavior to consolidate sideways, and that we did in an ascending triangle pattern, because we have an ascending triangle shape. The bottom part of the triangle is going up. The top of the triangle is the resistance, which is flat, and it shows that buying is coming in and we are making higher lows and strength is coming in until one day you break out. And this was really a picture perfect triangle flag, you could even say, right? We have the flagpole here and the triangle here. So it's a flag, it's a triangle, it doesn't really matter what you call it. Basically, it's a consolidation range, and when you break out of those ranges, then you can expect powerful movement with momentum to the upside. And that's what we're seeing right now. We broke out in October, or November, sorry, and we've come up and we have made another $400 of gains. So we've basically doubled, almost doubled in price since that breakout. And right now we're consolidating around 700. Now, if we take our Fibonacci extension, let's say from the breakout in the beginning of 2017 to the top of, sorry, it's the wrong one. I should use this one. There's two kinds of kind of Fibonacci price projection tools. This one is when you first project the move, and the second point is on the next breakout. So we start with the first breakout, our second point is at the top of that move, and the third point is at the breakout of that consolidation. So that gives us our Fibonacci targets, and you can see that they usually play out pretty well. On the weekly chart, we've basically come up against that 61.8 retracement extension level, because we're extending the Fibonacci lines, we're not retracing, and we've kind of consolidated and paused right at that level, which usually happens, to be honest. It's just natural human behavior, as well as people watching these levels, so they take profits, and we're waiting right now for the next jump up to the 161.8 level at 1108. That's kind of my next target, looking at 1108, and after that we have the 261.8, the 361.8, etc. And basically every time we reach a new level, it serves as a ceiling, and if we surpass that ceiling or that resistance, then the next target becomes our ceiling and the old level becomes the floor. So once we crossed, for example, this triangle ceiling or resistance, it now becomes the floor. It now becomes our support. It changes to support. So we could see a pullback and a bounce, or we could just have a flag here and break out. Let's look at the daily chart, and on the daily chart we're going to see a more in-depth look at those breakout levels. And am I going to do that on Coinbase, or where is that exactly? Okay, so here's the daily chart on Coinbase, and we can see a bit more granular view on a daily time frame. So we see that triangle, which we saw on the weekly chart. Now I like to draw trend lines for trends, and I like to draw little boxes for support levels, because support levels are more like areas or zones, support or resistance zones. So it's not going to be an exact price. But trend lines, usually connect the lows or the highs of a price movement. So I like to keep those as lines. But what we see here is that triangle, right, on the daily chart. And we consolidated in that triangle very beautifully until finally breaking out. Now we saw one high, we saw two tests of that resistance, we saw three tests, and on the fourth test of that resistance we broke out. And that's pretty common. On the third or fourth test we break out. If we test that level on the fourth time and we don't break out, usually what you'll see is a rejection and a fail. But we did break out on that fourth test, which was, or maybe even the third test if you're being very if you're being picky. We broke out of that third test and we consolidated above that level, and that was really healthy. I was really happy to see that we just kind of flagged above that level So we held that level, and holding that level shows that this former resistance, what was former resistance, is now becoming support, right? And it became support, and finally it decided to continue its breakout. And what we're seeing right now is a continuation of that breakout in a flag pattern, or a pennant, you could say. So we're in a pennant pattern. What that means is we can expect a breakout in the direction of the trend, and that should be up because the trend is up. How do we know the trend is up? Well, we are hitting new highs. That's one sign. Another sign, we can just quickly look at the 200-day moving average, this blue line. I really like the 200-day moving average. It gives us a quick smoothing mechanism to see what is the trend. Well, right now the trend is up. So if the trend is up, it just means that momentum is generally up, and we can have a bias to the upside. So this consolidation should break out to the upside. Now it could also break down to the downside, but then we do encounter this big support level at that 400 breakout, right, of that big consolidation over the summer. So it's certainly possible we break down here, but we did actually break down a little bit a few weeks ago, and this candle right here, which shows really healthy behavior because we broke down to this old support zone, right? It's more like a support zone, and we bounced straight back up. So that's a really healthy sign that bulls came in and bought it up. Buyers came in, and we're right back in this consolidation range, and we should pop out at some point. So, and that, I guess it depends on, you know, if Bitcoin is crashing, is Ethereum going to perform strong against Bitcoin, or is it going to take Ethereum down with it? And the stronger Ethereum performs against Bitcoin, the stronger it will perform against the dollar. So this chart, of course, is against the dollar. And before we look at Bitcoin, I want to make a target projection. Again, taking the Fibonacci retracement. This time we'll do a retracement Fibonacci in the consolidation range. So that means we take another way to do Fibonacci. The second way is to take the top of a consolidation range, the bottom of a consolidation range, and make your projections from there. So our first target was 161.8, and we met that target and we took some profits. The next target was the 200 measured move, and that means basically the double of this length, and we took profits there, and we're consolidating around that level, coincidentally enough. Our next target was actually the 261.8. We took profits around there, and we consolidate now between these two levels. If we break out of this box, we have this consolidation, right? If we break out of that consolidation and this box, then our next target really is this 361.8 at 1167. So that would be our next target where we want to take profits. So we always want to be taking profits at our consolidation levels, or if you're playing a longer term game, you could add to your position after breaking out of each of those levels and use those levels as a stop. So you could say, if we break down below this flag, I'm getting out, or I'm reducing my position. If we break down below 400, I'll get out or reduce my position, because if it breaks to 400, I mean, that's a pretty big support. That's a big weak sign of weakness, and we probably will see much lower prices, and you might want to wait until buying back in again. But if you put your stop at 700, for example, in this consolidation range, well, you have a bigger chance of stopping out, but at the same time, you could play a shorter term game and take profits at the 361.8 level right here, and if it goes below the flag, you stop out and you get out of your position. So your reward is this amount here, but your risk is very small. And that's what the game is all about, managing your risk and reward. But so far what we've seen in Ethereum in terms of price movement and technical analysis is that all signs are bullish. On the weekly chart, we have a huge breakout, a consolidation, and a breakout. On the daily chart, we see this breakout of the consolidation range over the last month, and we're just continuing to move higher and consolidate, right? Move higher and flag, move higher and flag. So there's no sign of weakness here. Volume is big and green, and that's a good sign. It means more buying volume than selling volume. And the RSI is over 70. Now that's actually a really good sign. It means that momentum is strong. I use the RSI. You can also use MACD or other indicators, but I love the RSI. Over 70 is overbought. It's simple, but it's not a sign to sell. It's a sign to buy the dips, or it's a sign that momentum is in a positive range. So basically, momentum is strong, buying volume is coming in, the 200-day is pointing up. We broke out of a consolidation range. We tested the support, we moved up, and now we're flagging. I mean, there is literally no bearish sign on this entire chart. So if all the signs point to bull, then, you know, that's what I'm going to make my bets on. I'm not going to bet on a crash if every sign is bullish at the moment. And it's not the same if you look at other charts like Bitcoin right now. There's a lot of bearish signs, and that's really interesting. So let's take a look at Bitcoin against Bitcoin. Now, if we took a quick look at Bitcoin right now, I don't want to because I said I would only focus on Ethereum. But if we take a quick look at Bitcoin really quickly, just a little peek, right? Just a little peek. You can see that, yeah, we have that head and shoulders on Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's kind of rolling over. It's kind of breaking down a little. So it looks a bit weak. There's a lot of kind of bullish momentum. The volume is red. The chart is not getting oversold. We are not making new highs. We're making lower highs. So there's a lot of bearish signs on the Bitcoin chart. But if we go to Ethereum, we had a lot of bullish signs. So let's compare Ethereum and Bitcoin. And this is one of my favorite charts, to be honest. I really love this chart because it's really simple and it shows what a trend is. You know, this is the chart of Ethereum against Bitcoin, and basically we had a low here in 2016. In 2016 we came up against, this is against Bitcoin, so Ethereum outperformed Bitcoin. Throughout 2016 we came down, and in 2017, at the end of 2016, we hit this low, okay, and now we can connect these lows and make a trend line and extend that trend line out into the future, right? Now in the top we only have this 1 point, so we can't really make a trend line yet. But then over 2017, Ethereum, as we know, really went higher, but so did Bitcoin, right? But what we saw was that Ethereum in the first half of the year outperformed Bitcoin, right? So this is 2017, the first half of the year, and we really outperformed Bitcoin in that period. So Ethereum went up and it hit this high up here against Bitcoin. Then starting in the fall, Bitcoin had a really big run because it became really popular in the news and people started buying into it, right? And Ethereum did okay, as we saw, but against the dollar. But against Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin was really outperforming Ethereum. So Ethereum was going down while Bitcoin was going up, and so Bitcoin was outperforming Ethereum. Now Ethereum was still performing well against the dollar, but against Bitcoin it was underperforming, and then we hit this low a couple of weeks ago. Now coincidentally, that low was right on the trend line that we created, right? So we see a almost 2.5-3 year pattern here of Ethereum in a channel. And right now Ethereum is on its way back up to that top line, right? Now if we extended the trend line from the highs, right? So right now we have that trend line. We need we need 2 points to make a trend line, but 3 points to validate a trend line, right? Because you can make a trend line with any 2 points, but with 3 points you actually have a trend. So we do have a floor that has been confirmed, and what we're looking for now is outperformance of Ethereum back up to that upper trend line, and then maybe another pullback. So I would expect this trend to continue. I would expect outperformance of Ethereum against Bitcoin. I would rather be in Ethereum right now than Bitcoin if I had to choose. Now maybe Ethereum crashes against the dollar, and maybe it's better to keep dollars than Ethereum. But if we're comparing Bitcoin and Ethereum without the dollar, then Ethereum should outperform Bitcoin. So if you want to choose Bitcoin or Ethereum right now, get in Ethereum. Okay, now that brings me to Litecoin. You might say, okay, well, Ethereum's going to outperform Bitcoin, but what about other coins that might do better than Ethereum? Well, here's another coin, Litecoin, one of the top cryptos right now. It's number 6 on CoinMarketCap. And we see here that Ethereum and Litecoin were kind of performing the same in 2017 716, Litecoin really outperformed Ethereum in the last, excuse me, actually this is a much closer chart. Actually, this is only the last few months, right? Ethereum and Litecoin were both kind of performing in the same way, but then Ethereum underperformed Litecoin, right? It crashed against Litecoin. So Litecoin, really what happened was Ethereum was going nowhere and Litecoin was just going, was just going to the moon, right? It was just shooting up really fast with a lot of momentum. And so Litecoin outperformed Ethereum. So that's why Ethereum is going down here, even though against the dollar, it didn't perform bad, right? So what we've seen in the last weeks is that Ethereum has outperformed Litecoin. And actually what that actually means is that Litecoin has crashed, right? But Ethereum has not. And so therefore, your money is better in Ethereum than in Litecoin. So against Bitcoin, Ethereum is performing well. And against Litecoin, Ethereum is also coming back up. And I expect us to hit that support level, that former support. I think that might be resistance when we get up there, but I think we have a long way to go still to travel back up to that former support level. And I think that either means Ethereum performs well or that Litecoin performs really badly. But everything, as we've seen so far, looks really good for Ethereum. On the dollar, it looks really bullish. Against Bitcoin, we're bouncing off against that bottom trend line. And against Litecoin, we're heading back up to a former support level. So again, all signs point to bullish. I wanted to look at some fun charts here. Ethereum against gold. Similar pattern, right? We had a breakout in November. We consolidated, and now we're consolidating sideways, and we should break out in the direction of the trend. That's against gold. Here we are against Apple. So if you have Apple stock, do you want to have Apple or do you want to have Ethereum? Well, same pattern, right? We should see a breakout of this consolidation in the direction of the trend. The trend is up. And what about Tesla? Tesla, I mean, it's been a pretty crazy stock. But look, against Tesla, we've also performed really well. We've broken out, we've gone sideways, we've come up, and we've gone sideways, and now we should break out again. What this means is that Ethereum is just performing so crazy well that against anything else, it's just holding up really nicely. So there might be some, in the last couple months, Ethereum hasn't really performed as well as Dash or Litecoin or Monero or Ripple, but I think in the future, it might do really well. Actually, let's compare it against Ripple. Can we? No, we don't have a way to compare it against Ripple at the moment. But we just see some really good signs in Ethereum for another breakout soon. So I would get your cash ready for that. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this technical deep dive into Ethereum. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you learned something along the way, or at least got a good overview of the market. Again, I really appreciate your support. Leave me your comments and questions. I will answer your questions in a future video called Crypto Questions. Check out my blog on TradingView. Subscribe to this page. And I look forward to doing a lot more of these and seeing everyone in 2018. And until then, everyone have a happy new year with your friends and family. Peace and love. Take care.